Hello, this is AP Psychology, Chapter 7, States of Consciousness. States of consciousness, consciousness and information processing, sleep, dreams, and biological rhythms, the rhythm of sleep and sleep disorders and dreams. We'll be discussing here the ideas of hypnosis, facts and falsehood, is hypnosis an altered state of consciousness, drugs and consciousness, dependence on addiction, psychoactive drugs, and the influence of drugs. Also, we'll talk about in the states of consciousness near-death experiences and the history of consciousness. Consciousness is our awareness of ourselves and our environment. Consciousness information processing enables us to exercise control and to communicate our mental states to others beneath the surface. Unconscious processing occurs simultaneously on many parallel tracks. Our daily schedule of waking and sleeping is governed by a biological clock known as the circadian rhythm. Our sleep also follows a repeating cycle. Awakening people during REM sleep yields predictable dream-like reports that are mostly ordinary events. Freud's view that dreams can be traced back to erotic wishes is giving way to newer theories, for example, that dreams help us process information and fix it in memory, or that dreams erupt from our neural activity. Studies of hypnosis indicate that although hypnotic procedures may facilitate recall, the hypnotist's beliefs frequently work their way into the subject's recollections. Hypnosis can be at least temporarily therapeutic and has potential of bringing significant pain relief. Hypnosis may be an extension of both of normal principles of social influence and of everyday splits in consciousness. Psychoactive drugs also alter consciousness. Depressants act by depressing neural functioning, and although their effects are pleasurable, they impair memory and self-awareness and may have other physical consequences. Stimulants act at the synapses by influencing the brain's neurotransmitters. Their effects depend on dosage and their user's personality and expectations. Hallucinogens can distort judgment of time and can alter sensations and perceptions. A number of those who survive a brush with death later recall visionary experiences. Some scientists point out that such near-death experiences closely parallel reports of hallucinations. So what we're going to discuss here is the history of psychology, studying of consciousness, and unconscious information processing. Psychology began as a study of consciousness, our awareness of ourselves and our environment, but the difficulty of scientifically studying consciousness led many psychologists to turn to direct observations of behavior, and by the middle of the 20th century, psychology was defined as the science of behavior. By 1960, mental concepts began to re-enter psychology, and today, investigating states of mind is again one of psychology's pursuits. Advances in neuroscience made it possible to relate brain activity to various mental states of waking, sleeping, and dreaming. Consciousness, modern psychologists believe, is an awareness of ourselves and our environment. Some occur spontaneously, such as daydreaming, drowsiness, and dreaming. Some are psychologically induced, hallucinations, orgasm, or food and oxygen starvation. And some are psychologically induced sensory deprivation, hypnosis, and meditation. So all of these can affect our consciousness. Neuroscientists believe that consciousness emerges from the interaction of the individual brain events, much like the chord that is created from different musical notes. Consciousness information processing enables us to exert voluntary control and to communicate our mental states to others. It takes place in sequence and is relatively slow and has limited capacity. Beneath the surface, faster unconscious processing occurs simultaneously on many parallel tracks. For example, when we meet someone, we instantly unconsciously react to their gender, their race, and appearance, and then become aware of our response. The unconscious mind processes information simultaneously on multiple tracks, while conscious mind processes information sequentially. So consciously, our conscious mind is just the surface. Our unconscious is very much what lies underneath the surface. So it's very much like the model of an iceberg. Sleep in dreams. Sleep is irresistible tempter to whom we inevitably succumb. Mysteries about sleep and dreams have just started unraveling in sleep laboratories around the world. So we want to distinguish the 4 types of biological rhythms and give an example of each. So biological rhythms are controlled by internal biological clocks. Annual cycles. On an annual cycle, geese migrate, grizzly bears hibernate, and humans experience seasonal variations in appetite, sleep, and mood. Seasonal affective disorder, or SAD, is mood disorder people experience during dark winter months. It's very common in places like Alaska, Sweden, and Norway. In fact, Sarah Palin, when she lived in Alaska, suffered from SAD and had a special light in her office to help her deal with that. Over varying periods of time, psychological fluctuations called biological rhythms affect human functioning. For example, on an annual cycle, people may experience seasonal variations in appetite, sleep, length, and moods. Similarly, many believe that the 28-day female menstrual cycle causes fluctuation in moods. Humans also experience 24-hour cycles of varying alertness, body temperature, and growth hormone secretion. Finally, people move through various stages of sleep in a 90-minute cycle. In 24-hour cycles, humans experience varying alertness, sleep, and body temperature and growth hormone secretion. In 90-minute cycles, we go through various stages of sleep in 90-minute cycles. Describe the cycle of our circadian rhythm and identify some events that can disrupt the biological clock. Our daily schedule of waking and sleeping is governed by a biological clock known as the circadian rhythm. This cycle is part of the response to light striking the retina, signaling the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the hypothalamus to trigger alterations in the level of biochemical substances, including decreased output of sleep-inducing melatonin by the pineal gland. Our body temperature rises as morning approaches and peaks during the day and dips for a time in early afternoon, and then begins again to drop again before we go to sleep. The cycle lasts about 24 hours, but can be disrupted by bright light, time changes, and alterations in our sleep schedule. And this is how jet lag occurs. Recent research indicates that thinking is the sharpest and memory most accurate when people are at the peak of their circadian arousal. So now what we're going to talk about are the stages of the sleep cycle. Measuring sleep about every 90 minutes, we pass through a cycle of 5 distinct sleep stages. And so we're going to list the stages of the sleep cycle and explain how they differ. We pass through a cycle of 5 sleep stages for a total of about 90 minutes. As we lie awake and relaxed before we sleep, our EEG shows relatively slow alpha waves. Stage 1 sleep is characterized by fantastic images resembling hallucinations. Stage 2 sleep, the stage in which we spend most time, follows about 20 minutes later. Is characteristic of what are called sleep spindles. Starting in stage 3, increasingly in stage 4, the brain emits large, slow delta waves. These two slow wave sleep stages last for about 30 minutes, during which we are hard to awaken. Reversing course, we retrace our path through these stages with one difference. At about an hour after falling asleep, we begin approximately 10 minutes of REM, rapid eye movement sleep, in which most dreaming occurs. In this fifth stage, also known as paradoxical sleep, we are internally aroused but outwardly paralyzed. The sleep cycle repeats itself several times during a normal night's sleep, with periods of stage 4 sleep progressively shortening the periods of REM. So when we're awake and alert, we have strong mental engagement. The brain exhibits this low amplitude, fast, irregular beta waves from 15 to 30 cycles per second. An awake person involved in a conversation shows beta activities. So this is what we look like when we're conscious and awake. When an individual closes his eye but remains awake, his brain activity slows down to a large amplitude of slow, regular alpha waves, 9 to 14 cycles per second. A meditating person exhibits alpha brain activity. During early light sleep stages 1 and 2, the brain enters high amplitude, slower, regular wave form called theta waves. A person who's daydreaming shows theta activity. During the deepest sleep, stages 3 and 4, the brain activity slows down. There are large amplitude, slow delta waves take place. And after researching the deepest sleep stage, stage 4, the sleep cycle starts moving backwards towards stage 1. Although still asleep, the brain engages in slow amplitude, fast, regular beta waves, 15 to 40 cycles per second, much like an awake, aroused state. A person during this sleep exhibits what's called rapid eye movement, or REM, and reports vivid dreams. With each 90-minute cycle, stage 4 sleep decreases, the duration of REM sleep increases, and so as you can see, we go down through the different stages, we come back up several times a night. So why do we sleep? If we spend 1/3 of our lives sleeping. If an individual remains awake for several days, they deteriorate in terms of immune function, concentration, and accidents. And so we're going to explain why sleep patterns and their duration vary from person to person. People differ from their individual sleep requirements. For example, newborns sleep twice as much as adults. These age-related individuals are rivaled by differences in their normal amount of sleep among individuals of any age. Twin studies suggest that these differences may be partially genetic. Sleep patterns are also culturally influenced. People in modern industrialized nations get less sleep because of shift work, social diversions, and technology, for example. So now we're going to discuss several risks associated with sleep deprivation. So in our next audio, we'll start with sleep deprivation.